Welcome everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you for joining me for 10 more rock albums everyone should own. This is essentially a part 2 of a previous video that I did that was simply called 10 rock albums everyone should own. And I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested and want to check that first video out, especially since there's going to be a lot of big name bands that won't be included on this list because they've already been included in that first list. And so these 10 albums here are career-defining, genre-setting, hugely influential and record-breaking in most cases, but I do want to preference that these are not the only 10 albums that you should own. These are just 10 of some of the greatest rock albums out there that you should own. And before we go any further though, to dive into what these 10 are, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the video or you know someone that would, please share it. Help get the word out that way too. I would also appreciate it. And of course, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music, just like this, with 10 more rock albums that everyone should own. And so, as a little context, I've got over 9,000 CDs in my collection, and my musical interests span from early 60s rock on through the 70s, 80s, 90s into present, including glam rock, prog rock, hard rock, melodic rock, and AOR. And so a lot of the bands that I considered for this here, it was very difficult to not include them in this list. I looked at the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, Queen, Kansas, Meatloaf, Kiss, Bon Jovi, Bruce Springsteen, Leonard Skinner, Bad Company, just to name a few. And of course, there's the 10 bands that I have in the first video that I'm not looking at because they were included there. So the question becomes, what 10 bands are included here, and I've got these to go through, and I've ranked them here for this, but remember, these are not the only 10 or the 10. These are just 10 more albums that should be owned. And so here we go, kicking it off. Number 10, Deep Purple and Machine Head from 1972. 6th studio album, 2 million copies sold. And everything really seemed to come together for these guys on this album, with all 5 members right in their element. And it featured songs like Highway Star, which I think is one of the best driving songs ever because of that interplay between John Lord on keyboards and Ritchie Blackmore and his guitar. Just makes it fantastic. Space Truckin', the opening keyboard and guitar riff on that is just excellent. Really creates a cool spacey groove that ties in nicely to the lyrics. And then you've got what is probably the most overplayed guitar riff ever in the song Smoke on the Water, but at the time when it came out, it wasn't overplayed. It was so powerful. And the way that it builds, adding one additional instrument each round on it, I think it's just another reason that this song here stands out from the masses of songs. Okay, coming in at number 9, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Damn the Torpedoes, their 1979 third studio album, and it sold 3 million copies in the US. Groundbreaking album for these guys at the time. I think all the energy that had gone into them waging a war with their record label, because they had been in a lawsuit with them before this album came out, was put into the album, creating 9 amazing pieces of rock music with lots and lots of energy. So you've got songs like Refugee, which opens as a big rock song, and I love the keyboard and guitars on this one here before it falls back into a groove. And then of course returning for their big chorus, to boot on it. And then you've got songs like Here Comes My Girl, which has got a cool sort of spoken word verse to it before it kicks in with a beautiful chorus on it. It's also got the song Even the Losers, which was not released as a single at the time, but has equally become as big as any of their other songs, so I've included it here. And Don't Do Me Like That, originally demoed with his previous band Mudcrutch. It's got a very classic sort of rock sound to it, but he almost gave it away to the Jay Giles band. I'm glad he didn't, because I really like this version here. And then coming in at number 8, we've got The Doors and their debut 1967 studio album, which has sold 4 million copies in the US. The band has a really unique sound as they do not have a bass player in the band. Instead, Ray Manzarek plays all the bass parts on his keyboards. And, they've got one of the most volatile frontmen in Jim Morrison. And then also set apart by the mix of many different styles of music that they play: rock, blues, jazz, pop, psychedelia, and even mixing in elements of classical music. Featured songs like Break On Through, which is an up-tempo rock song, but yet it features a bossa nova drum beat by John Densmore. And then you got Light My Fire, one of the most recognizable keyboard riffs by Ray Manzarek. And then it's got flares of Latin and classical music mixed into it. And then you have the song The Inn, which is a real epic number, clocking in at 11 minutes with elements of psychedelia and even remnants of early goth sounds to it, just showing what an innovator both the band and this album was in 1967. All right, coming in at number 7, Steve Miller Band and Book of Dreams from 1977, 10th studio album, 3 million copies sold in the US. It was actually recorded along with their previous album, Fly Like an Eagle, at the same time, which was 1976. And it continued using the spacey keyboard sound, and it moved on with adding in musical styles of course, rock, blues, and psychedelia with it, along with that space rock, and featured songs like Jet Airliner, which was actually a cover song written by Paul Pina in 1973. His version didn't come out until 2000 as it had been shelved at the time, but this one here, just a solid poppy rock song, really great. Also includes Swing Town, which is a soaring rock song that builds and builds at the beginning and then just goes into sort of a cruise control thing after that point. Jungle Love, another great driving rock song, and it really elevates during the chorus itself, just helping put the song right over the top. Okay, next up, number 6, Whitesnake and the self-titled release in 1987, sometimes known as 1987. 7th studio album, 8 million copies sold. One of the biggest sounding all-time records in my opinion. It's got huge guitars, bombastic drums, and over-the-top vocals on it, and it completed the change for the band from being a straightforward blues rock band to a more polished hard rock band with blues undertones to them. And the album itself actually features 2 re-recorded songs from an earlier album, Saints and Sinners, in 1982, Crying in the Rain, which features John Sykes really revving this version up here, making it much heavier, and then Here I Go Again. This version here is a more straight-ahead rock song, verging almost on the edge of it being a power ballad, whereas the original version was much more boogie rock. And then the album itself features the songs Is This Love, arguably the band who created the 80s power ballad, doing it better than anyone on this song here, and Still of the Night, just another huge guitar song. Both John Sykes and David Coverdale are in overdrive on this one. Okay, coming in at number 5, Van Halen 5150 from 1986. Now on my first list I included another Van Halen album, but that one featured David Lee Roth, and since there's such a difference between the bands and the 2 frontmen, I decided to include another Van Halen album on this one. This is the 7th studio album, 6 million sold in the US, and of course featuring former Montrose vocalist Sammy Hagar on this one. I think it really allowed the band to grow and took the music to the next level for these guys, providing a very distinct sound with the use of their keyboards that they elevated even more since the previous album, 1984, featuring songs like Why Can't This Be Love, which is a melodic rocker, but it still chugs along. It's got those prominent keyboards and a real smoking guitar solo from Eddie Van Halen. And then the song Dreams. This one here explored new territory for these guys, a great high energy song that also soars. Love Walks In. This one here had the band moving in that power ballad territory as a lot of the 80s bands were, but I think doing it better than most, and it still managed to rock. Okay, coming in at number 4, Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic, 1975, third studio album selling 8 million copies in the US, and it's just a good, straightforward, raw sounding rock album. The band is very tight on this one. Joe Perry has so many great riffs on this album here, and then of course Steven Tyler countering with soul and depth in his vocals, featuring songs like the title track Toys in the Attic, which is just a big, dirty, hard driving rock riff, type song. Walk This Way, one of the most recognizable drum riffs by Joey Kramer, and of course, not to be outdone, Joe Perry provides a real classic guitar riff to match on it, and it features what I think is one of Joe Perry's best guitar solos. And then Sweet Emotion. This one's a big sounding song itself. I love how it builds at the beginning before kicking in with some really sweet vocals by the whole band on it. And of course, Joe Perry providing another great riff. And I just would have to say, this album, in my opinion, just has riffs for days. It goes on and on. It's so good. All right, coming in at number 3, the Rolling Stones and Some Girls from 1978. 16th studio album in the US, but actually the 14th studio album in the UK. 6 million copies sold in the US, influenced by dance and disco music at the time, and it was a decision that they made that they wanted to pursue as far as that's concerned. But I think they merge it really well with the soulful blues rock styles of their previous material. And of course, it was the first album to feature Ron Wood as a full-time guitarist. He had contributed here and there to a few songs before this, and it features songs like Miss You, great driving bass line by Bill Wyman, of course adding to that disco feel, then Beast of Burden, which is a melodic rocker with a lot of soul and attitude to it, and Shattered. This one here's got real good heavy bottom end on it with frenetic vocals, providing the song with a lot of energy, and of course just throughout the album itself has a lot of great energy too. Okay, coming in at number 2, The Who and Who's Next from 1971, 5th studio album, 3 million copies sold in the US. The album itself developed out of the aborted rock opera Lifehouse, and also featured prominent use of synthesizers. The album moved away from that mod sound into it becoming a more straight-ahead rock album, featuring the songs Baba O'Reilly, one of the most iconic keyboard samples, making the song instantly recognizable, and then of course those huge crashing guitars putting it over the top. And then Bargain, a great chugging rock song with soaring vocals. Behind Blue Eyes, one of the most beautiful ballads that picks up a bit, and rocks out right before the end. Won't Get Fooled Again, another iconic keyboard sample with big crashing guitars again, and just a perfect way to finish off this classic rock album. Okay, and coming in at number 1, Led Zeppelin, Untitled, 4th studio album in 1971, sometimes referred to as 4. 23 million copies sold in the US, with an estimated 37 million around the world. The band really began experimenting more on this album, using different arrangements. The album itself is essentially a greatest hits in my opinion, with all 8 of these being hits themselves. I've heard them all on radio so many times. Lots of bands covering these songs, featuring songs like Black Dog, which is an amazing rock opener, just pure rock at its best in my opinion. I love the offset between the guitar and the vocals, letting each side shine. And then Misty Mountain Hop, which is personally my favorite song off the album. I really love the guitar riff and the groove of it. Going to California, which is such a beautiful acoustic, guitar arrangement that has such depth to it. And Stairway to Heaven, which, is arguably the most iconic rock song ever. What top 10 list of songs would be complete without it, right? The way it starts off, clean or acoustically sounding, building over the length of the song itself until it really rocks out hard by the end. This song became the ultimate blueprint for so many bands going forward after this point here. And there you go. 10 more rock albums that everyone should own. And if you're interested in the first video I did of this, remember to check the description below for that. Certainly, guys, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your comments. I'm sure there's other albums and bands that were left off here. And as I said, this is not the only 10 rock albums you should own. It's just 10 of some of the rock albums you should own, right? Let me know your thoughts, your comments. I hope everyone has a great day. Take care, and I'll talk to you all real soon. Bye, everyone.